The last attention control strategy we'll talk about today is improvisation-based. Before we get into the research behind this, I want you to experience it first. In a moment, I'd like you to pause the video, pick a short 1 to 2 line passage that's pretty well learned, and give your best performance of it while imagining the following scenario. This first time, I want you to imagine that you're in the finals of a big, huge competition, that it's you and just one other person, and you've played out of your mind to this point, and the only thing you have left to play is this 2-line passage you've selected, which is going to determine whether or not you win and get the recording contract, all these concerts, awesome prize money, and all that stuff. So when you're ready, press pause and give your absolute best performance of these 2 lines, but make sure not to miss any notes or make any mistakes, because it has to be absolutely perfect. When you're ready, press pause, and remember, don't make any mistakes. Okay, now you're going to play the exact same thing one more time, and obviously you're still going to try to play your very best, just like you always would, but this time I'd like you to focus all of your attention on offering subtle new nuances to your performance, like a little half wiggle of vibrato here or there, a slightly different color in your sound, a little variation in the dynamics, or something different with the articulation or rubato. Nothing super obvious that anyone would necessarily notice, but just little spontaneous things here and there for fun. Press pause and give that a try. Okay, so how did those 2 feel? Any difference? Was one more engaging or fun than the other? Did one feel easier or safer or more creative? A lot of times, people would describe the second one as feeling more like they were creating and more locked into the present moment, and less like they were trying to replicate or reproduce something and judging or evaluating and dwelling on things in the past. And also that it's more freeing and funner to play that way. Occasionally though, people will report that they found themselves second-guessing themselves, or evaluating their choices in the moment, or trying to plan things too far ahead, or getting paralyzed or indecisive about what exactly to do. If that's the case for you, or if a student has that experience, you can simplify things by reducing the number of options you provide. For instance, just limit the subtle nuances to dynamics only, or vibrato only, or rubato only. That will often help with reducing the paralysis or judginess that can otherwise sometimes happen. It can also help to record yourself when you do this, so you can save the judging for when you listen back, and just stay in that creative headspace while you're playing. So why is this a useful strategy for performance? Well, part of it has to do with how this way of thinking tends to keep you more in the present moment and leave less room for thinking about the past or future. What's really kind of cool though, is that the research suggests there's also an interesting benefit to the listener. In a study conducted at Arizona State University, the college orchestra was asked to perform the last movement of Brahms' First Symphony twice. The first time, they were told to imagine the best performance they could and play it just like that. The second time, they were asked to offer subtle new nuances to their performance, little nuances that even their stand partner might not notice, but were there nonetheless. And then, about 150 community choir members were given the 2 recordings and asked if they had a preference between the 2. About 88% expressed a preference, and 83% of those with a preference preferred the subtle nuance version. So something definitely tends to come across. The one thing you have to keep in mind though, is that this strategy isn't something you can just do for the first time in a performance. You definitely have to integrate this into your practice well in advance. Because if you suddenly try to add slight variations to your performance spontaneously and unplanned that you've never tried before, under pressure, that's going to add some risk. However, if you practice taking these microscopic risks in your practice and in run-throughs and lessons, rehearsals, and so on, these tiny risks will not only be less risky on stage. This kind of practice, known as variable practice, will actually improve your flexibility and eventually make you more adaptable and consistent when you have to adapt to different acoustics, different ensemble partners, different conductors, and different situations. So, what's the best way to practice all of these skills and get comfortable using them in performance situations? We will explore all of that in the next video on performance practice.